chapter of Gather Together, Grow Together. We provide transportation, affordable transportation. All right, all right, all right. How is everyone doing today? Hit the horn. It is Wednesday, so you know what time it is. It is the best hour of your week. It is 1 p.m. in Kitsap County. We are now in the month of September. It is September 6th. It's the first day of school for Layla, so give her the horn. I guess summer is officially over. But we got to get into it because we got a lot to talk about, and the hour goes so fast. And this is episode number 80. So let me go ahead and bring on Mr. September. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, but just never call me the November man, especially if you've seen the movie.
Oh, I have.
Yeah,
Not bad.
he comes through and everybody dies. Yeah, it's not a good thing to be remembered for.
True story. So how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, though. Today's topic is getting more and more personal in some ways, as you and I both struggle with making connections in this post-COVID world, and post with the question mark after it, because is it? I mean, we can talk about the pandemic itself, but it's not necessarily the pandemic I want to talk about. It's the effects of the pandemic on our collective psyche.
Interesting. Well, I'll say these few things. One, I went to my orthopedic doctor, and they were all wearing masks, and she was really upset that they had to go back to mask wearing. There's a new variant that's out. The president, his wife, Dr. Joe Biden, has COVID, and she couldn't travel with him. That was just released, I think, 2 days ago in the news. And so you're seeing it, right? It's whipping up. And I thought maybe it wasn't going to happen. It's been hot, so people will go into air conditioned spaces and can get it. But it's been hot for so long that why is the spike happening now? So pretty interesting. So are we post COVID? I man, that's a super loaded
Well,
question. I'm going to say no.
well, actually, they always predict as we go into fall that we're going to have more of it because the temperatures are changing. But also, I drove somebody to a doctor's appointment yesterday, and they said they were stunned there were no masks in the doctor's office at all, and you weren't required to wear them. And she had never been in her memory of the last 2 or 3 years been in a doctor's office where it wasn't required that you wear a mask.
Yeah, well, the new normal has been replaced by another new normal, right?
Yeah. So, but the effects of it, as we're seeing over and over and over again, are the fear caused by it. I know a lot of people who are activists, as do you, but they never show up to anything because they're terrified of getting COVID. At least the ones I've talked to. They said, "Why don't you show up?" I said, "Well, I'm afraid of getting COVID." And so you don't do anything. You don't leave your house. You just do your activism online because you're afraid of getting COVID,
Right.
instead of masking up and going to do it anyhow.
Well, you got to also look at the fact that I think what's missed in this is, there was a lot of death during COVID, right?
Yes, it
And
was.
you lost a lot of breadwinners that destroyed families, and they have not recovered from that.
Nope.
And even if they weren't a breadwinner, you lost, grandparents and, family members that are quite traumatic. And, everyone deals with trauma in different ways, right? Not being able to
Absolutely.
see someone as they're passing because they wouldn't let them into the hospital or only one at a time. So you had to make a choice. Man, I mean, that's tough. I was sharing on a podcast last week that I took a friend to the emergency room, and she was in bad condition, right? There were 100, it looked like there were 100 people in that waiting room. It was beyond standing room only. And she said, "Take me home." And so as messed up as she was, take me home. I'll try to come back when it, lessens a little bit. And this was on a Monday, not a holiday, not after a holiday, right? Middle of the day, like 2 in the afternoon, packed, packed. It's crazy.
And and we see it again and again. I mean, St. Michael's, we can talk about their quality and everything else, but their emergency room is frequently packed when I go by there.
Hmm.
So it's, people have medical care. And another program later in the future, and I do want to get to this maybe in number 100, we'll talk about the state of medical profession in our country today.
Mm. Yeah, that'd be a good one.
That'll be a show I think both of us will be like, pulling out our spears and hammers and getting ready to like frag some people.
Facts.
Um,
Not
but
literally frag people.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, well, here's a joke for you to kind of prep for that. Okay, this is a teaser for number 100, which is 20 episodes from now.
All right.
So, what do you call a person who got through medical school with a C average?
Mm. What?
Doctor. So that's that's the teaser for the one coming up. For this one, you and I both do nonprofits. We run nonprofits. We focus on making connections with people and and we're more and more forced into the institutional track, which is so wildly unsuccessful in ways of finding funding and resources and everything else. Matter of fact, some organizations spend all their time working with other organizations and the foundations to survive. But our job is really, the years of my job especially, I'm not talking about other organizations here, is especially connecting with people.
Hmm.
And that is harder and harder and harder to do in a world where people are afraid to be in the same space with others. Well,
It is.
I think we lost something tremendous during the COVID years, and we were already heading that direction. We were already heading into a divisive area, and we were already seeing a lot of divisiveness. And then COVID hit, and I think it just took that to a whole different level. And we've come out of this, so to speak, um, in a place where we don't trust and we have trouble connecting. And I think that we've lost something almost human in this process.
Well, we have, but unfortunately, the government lied. They dropped the ball in almost every step of the way. Instead of being honest with the American people on what it was and what it is, they ended up politicizing something that didn't need to be politicized. And now, let's say this new variant or this mutates again and it's a more infectious variant. What are we going to see? Are people going to be willing to wear masks? Or are they going to be like, you know what? There were so many lies told, so many mistruths, so many, withhold the things that now, nah, I'm not wearing a mask.
So here's consequences, isn't it? This is what we talk
Ooh,
about. This is what we talk about every week.
yeah.
This is consequences. I've talked to, and I'm going to shift just a little bit, but I'm going to come back.
Sure.
So this isn't really a rabbit hole, okay? Like we are so famous chasing down the rabbit
Oh
holes.
man.
But I hear all the time that that people, the rich people, are going to get through this because they planned everything out, and that they're smart, and they have all these escape routes that they've invested their money in.
Hmm.
And I'm looking at this going, have they really? When you think about it, they're in the same boat as the rest of us. They just have more resources to do things with, but that doesn't mean they're smarter. And they are in the same system that we're in, which lies and for their own benefit. And I mean, they do it, but it's done to them too on a regular basis. So we're all in the same boat of ignorance and falsehoods. And when the consequences come, they're going to hit all of us equally.
I don't know if it's equally.
Well,
Folks that have privilege tend to kind of, navigate or circumvent their way to get resources and access,
well,
and or they're able to keep their income and remote work, right?
it's true, but at some point, that income is at risk because of this. It's one of the consequences. We're already, and we've talked about this over and over again, we're in an upside down pyramid when a pyramid, wide base pyramid, is the healthy model. At
Right.
some point, it's collapsing. It's already collapsing. We've watched, and we talked last week about, we watched this over and over again. The going off the gold standard, the manufacturing backs our dollar, manufacturing offshores, the serviceability backs our dollar. Then that goes offshore. Then real estate backs our dollar, and that bubble's about to burst. So our dollar is backed by our faith. That's the only thing that's really backing the U.S. dollar, and that's not a really secure place for the dollar to be. And when we're also dependent on it and not dependent on the things that we need to survive, and that everyone's trying to manipulate the data so that they can keep the bubble going for themselves, and the bubble is going to collapse. It cannot sustain its own weight any longer.
The train is definitely running out of track. That's for sure.
So when that happens, it will affect all of us, and actually not equally. They will be affected far more dramatically in an economic collapse than we are, because they don't have the support base that we have, because they're literally all alone.
Think so, huh?
How much do you hear about their families and them getting together for picnics? They are who they are because their entire focus is not people. Their entire focus is money. They can't do what they do unless they're trying to fill a hole that exists in them.
So then what's the appeal to those folks?
I don't think there is an appeal. I think that you just, some of them, like Nick Kavanagh from Seattle, he already gets it, and he's doing what he can do. He goes around and tries to wake people up. He's on TED Talks and everything else. So, there are some people that get it and understand the consequences of the actions, the ongoing actions, but not for the majority of them. But the majority, when you're talking about 1%, that's not a majority of anything. So
Right.
we have a whole bunch of people to work with to make it better.
We do.
99%. And of the 99%, about 30%, 20 to 30% will actually start moving faster. But we can't get there. Going back to the subject, I told you I'd run back around to it. We can't get there if we don't connect. Everyone is huddling and continuing to huddle, and we're not connecting. And we have to. And we have this the potential of social media, which I've cleaned out stalls that have less shit in it than that. The horse reference for those of you who don't understand what mucking a stall is. I have spent the last week. This is a precursor to the board meeting. I have spent the last week looking for alternatives to Facebook. Because we as an organization will never get where we need to be if we keep spinning our wheels on the ignore everything but cute kitty picture social media platform. We need to get a platform that we can build that isn't a social media platform for everybody, but is a social media platform for people who are interested in working on our project with us. An open platform that brings people in to share and talk and ask questions and get classes and get all of the things that they need to start the progress and grow the projects that we're pushing. And I have lots of folks interested, but I can't. The Facebook algorithms prevent people from seeing more than 10% of what you post. And nobody, some people like and share and comment, but they are very rare. And that's how you grow things. So what you have is large platforms being largely ignored, trying to get out to people, and plus there's all the people trying to rip you off and sell you shit and all the rest of the stuff that you can't really have a conversation. And social media platforms were originally developed to have conversations. So the Arab Spring was put together predominantly on Instagram and Twitter and organized people. I don't know if Facebook played a big part in that, but Twitter's essentially gone now. It's been completely destroyed.
Do you think so?
I've been watching it. I have an account on it. I've been watching it, and largely it's an echo chamber. People just talking at each other, not really having conversations. And there's so much out there that just developing outrage to get people to do that. I know lots and lots of people who have left Facebook completely. They will never go back because it's just so ugly. And me, it's not ugly on my page because I spend half an hour to an hour every day cleaning it up and working with the algorithms to keep things off my page that I don't want to see that I shouldn't be there.
Well, it's kind of like, well, who wants to do that though?
Exactly. So I do it because because I run the organization and it needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So
But the average person that just
isn't going to do that.
tap in and
The average person is not technical at all. They don't even understand what that means. When you tell them about an algorithm, they hear this thing and they think it's something to do with AI. They don't understand that people are basically deciding what people can see that they post and what they can't, and they're deciding what they can see based on something they may have looked at. YouTube is a great example for this, and I don't mean to diss YouTube in any way. It's actually one of the best platforms out there. But when I look at something on YouTube, the next 3 weeks, I'm seeing every variant of that one thing I looked at, and I'm going, good God, people, I just looked at something. I didn't want to know everything in the world about it. I don't want everyone's views on it. I wanted to see that specific thing. And
yeah, oh, definitely turn off autoplay because you can set it to where it'll play the next video.
Long time ago. Time ago. I don't do autoplay. But it's like, you're building the conduit network, and I'm trying to build the Resiliency Rocks network. Though, quite honestly, I'm focused mostly on the conduit network now and trying to push things through that. And getting people's attention is tough.
It is.
And I'm going to push people to the Kitsap Resiliency Project page for just a moment. There's a post up there from NPR that I put up last week, and I talked to Rob, and he was going to talk to you about it. It talks about the death of local news. And there's a new model that's emerging.
Really?
The new model, and I really recommend it. It's like a 12-minute watch. I really recommend you watch it because there is a nonprofit model for news in journalism that's coming out, and there are some foundations that are funding nonprofit news organizations across the country, and they're starting to thrive, and they're doing some really good work in their local areas. So that's a good tipping point piece that I wanted to throw in there. But the struggle with going back to it, just so people don't forget that we're actually talking about making connections in a post-COVID world. COVID damaged us and our thinking about connecting, combined with all of the fear and all of the divisiveness that have been pumped at us. We're in a place now where it's really hard to get people's attention. They'll come once, and then they find out that you're asking them to actually engage, and you never see them again.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't come together and we don't engage, come on, folks, you've heard this song 1,000 times on the show. We aren't going to be here in 100 years. And by the way, today is my daughter's 26th birthday.
Really? Happy birthday.
Yes. And I think about this all the time, but on her 26th birthday, I think about it even more. That what does her life look like in 30 years when she's 56? What is that going to be like? I mean, I don't talk politics, but the question on the table right now is our Congress going to get it together to do a continuing resolution, or is the government going to shut down again? And it's not an opinion. It's just the question is on the table. Can they pull out of their dark places and do the work that we elected them to do? Or are they going to ignore the needs of the people of the United States and play political games until people are out of work or are getting paid and damage the economy?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, no one wants the football to blow up when it's in their hands.
There's a book I read, a series of books actually by Stephen Perry, and they're about revolution. And in the universe in which this was written, there's a game called Poison Ball.
Mm.
And the poison ball is a ball that you it's kind of like, do you know what highlight is?
Highlight.
Highlight, I don't know how it's spelled, but it's a South American game where you have
No.
kind of a curved handle instead of a racket, and a
Oh
ball
yeah,
comes
yeah.
over and you catch it and you throw it back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is a game kind of like highlight, but there's an air wall in between that you have to throw it fast enough to get through the air wall. And at some point, the ball is going to explode and spew toxic poison all over wherever it's at. So your job is to get the ball on the other side of the wall before that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the game of our life. And that's the
Fact.
game of our politics. It's what we're seeing in every level. We're trying to throw the ball as fast as we can back through the wall so somebody else gets it.
Mm-hmm.
How's that for connection? We're not connecting. We're trying to get the ball into somebody else's hands. So when it blows up in their face, not ours.
Which is pretty odd when you think about it, because the party wants power, but then kicks the football down the road for the next party,
Because they've
but wants
taught
to
us,
retain it for as long as possible. And it just makes it worse, right? Just compounds.
right? But they've trained us through our education system, through the media, through everything else, that we should not pay attention to anything more than one news cycle or 30 seconds or anything else. So, they can do something heinous now, but then they'll spin it, spin it, spin it, and spin it. And then in the next election, we vote for them again. And what do you do about that? I mean, it's basically in the game of poison ball. My solution is put your thing down, let the ball roll into your area, and come on my side of the air wall.
Mm.
Let's figure this out together.
But the problem is why your side? I like my side. Come to my side and let the ball stay on your side.
It doesn't matter which side, as long as we're on the other side of the wall from the ball.
So how do you frame that to get people to say, "Hey, I'll come to your side"? And
You
what does
know,
that mean?
but that's your job on the board of directors. You're supposed to figure out how to say it right. The ball just went through the air wall to your side.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. And exploded.
No, in this case, it's people have to trust that you have their interest in mind, and you have to be able to give. Like you said, well, I like my side. Fine, I'll put my paddle down and run through the air wall. I mean, it doesn't matter what side we're on, as long as it's not the side that the air ball is on, the poison ball is on.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you get that across? You have to build trust. You have to build relationships. You have to get people to understand that you don't care about the situation right now. You care about the outcome, and the outcome is only good if it works for both of you.
So I wonder, let's say, let's project forward and say, okay, COVID lockdowns come again, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we encourage people to navigate that as quickly as possible, not making the mistakes of last time, putting kids behind and all the other things that uh, became huge issues from folks that would be on the other side typically of this issue, right? I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to shut down. You take care of yourself. You need to wear a mask because you got comorbidities, then that's on you. But I shouldn't have to wear one, right? What does that look like to get on the same side so we can navigate
Well,
through it?
let's go back to that conversation about the social media page that
Mhm.
is for people to come to be part of a group of like-minded individuals trying to create a better world. And in that case, you're building trust with them. You've invited them to your side of the air wall. And when that happens, and you put out information, much like the Conduit Network does, you put out information that allows people to make good decisions based on real data,
Mhm.
not politicized bullshit, not whatever the momentary media thing is flashing or whatever click generator is out there. You help people make good decisions and have better lives together, working together. And so that's my goal. My goal is to find a platform that we can do that on, that we can invite people in and not try and sell them something, but try and get them to work together toward something for everybody.
Do you think that I'll use we, but whatever side can admit to the truth of the other side that was suppressed in the past? 'Cause I think that's a big piece that's going to be needed to go forward, right? If someone says, "Hey, this is where Fauci was dishonest," or "Here's where Trump should have done better," looking at that dichotomy, admitting to both of those things and saying, "Okay, yes, this was a lie, this was a mistruth, this was a misstep, this is how this should have went, but here's what it really is,"
Oh, you
right?
mean a real analysis?
How do we go forward together? Yeah,
Yeah,
and provide that, right? Where
exactly so.
you're critical on both sides, and then you say, this is what it is,
I
right?
think that can be done
Mhm.
in one document.
Really, one doc.
A one document that's an analysis of the process leading up to COVID
Okay.
and talking about here's where they were wrong,
Hmm.
here's where they were right, here are the things. And I think you have to go back farther than the actual epidemic itself.
Oh,
I
sure.
think you have to go back to the fact that epidemiologists have been saying this pandemic was coming for over 30 years. You have to go back and this is not a comment about a political comment in any way, shape, or form. This was just factual that the Trump administration stripped the organization dedicated to dealing with this bare of all funding and closed it down just within a year of actually having the COVID epidemic hit. And that's just happened. It happened. It's not a statement or not a blame or anything else. That's what happened. When you have epidemiologists, you have people who are dedicated to dealing with disease, are telling you something for 30 years and saying this is coming, all of the math, all of the science, all of our knowledge points to it. But every year it hasn't happened. Every year it doesn't happen. All the flu outbreaks are just small little outbreaks, and the big one doesn't come. So you get lackadaisical and you think that it's not necessary, especially if you don't think in long terms or you don't think in geologic time. You don't think larger than the next quarterly profit or the consequences that come from that. You don't put effort and you stop putting resources, and suddenly you have a COVID outbreak, and this is what we saw.
Well, and at the same time, right? What was it? Bill Gates and Obama were saying 5 years previous that something like this was coming.
Yeah, because they were listening to scientists. They were listening to people who actually spend their lives doing this. There's a great actually. I'm just going to ask people to watch the Newsroom if they can see it on HBO Max or watch it on YouTube for free. The I think it's called something Fool, The Greater Fool, and there's a broadcast that is done in there. Of course, it's fictitious, talking about how we stopped believing in science, how we belittle people who are intelligent, how we, other people who are not the great unwashed medium of everything.
Mm.
And we got to get out of that headspace. We got to lift everybody up, not put them down. We are never going to get where we need to be if we put people down, if we other people, if we make them less than they are.
Well, maybe there's a need to depoliticize issues and a place for that to exist. And that may be
Again,
the nonprofit, social media news or whatever that looks like.
yeah, or maybe it's a nonprofit group that is a host for a place that you can have safe space, that you get truth, that you get information, but you also come together and work together to solve problems.
But how do you do that without leaning one side or to the left or to the right at all?
Well, I mean, some of the issues are going to lean left and right according to how the left and right define themselves, but they're human issues. It doesn't matter if it's left or right if it's human. We spend too much time looking at political coloring outside of the lines.
Oh, I'm 100% with you. I'm just thinking that we
And
have to get into
we
the
need to
mindset.
we need to redefine it as the human mindset. Let's take care of each other. Let's take care of ourselves. Let's deal with consequences before they become bad consequences.
I'm with you, but I think we have to get into the mindset of folks wherever they exist to be able to shift their paradigm, right?
So
Because
now,
otherwise, you don't have no idea on how to reach them and how to talk to them.
and right now, it doesn't matter if you can reach them or not. They're not going to pay any attention because the only means that we have this is social media, and it's pretty much destroyed itself. So what we have to do is build trust and give them a place to go. And here we are back to tipping points. We get 20-25% of them, and the rest don't matter. They'll follow at some point because they'll see everyone moving in one direction.
I like it. I like it as always, for sure.
But the question is how to get people's attentions in a post-COVID world, and maybe not so post-COVID world. I mean, we all are living with that fear. And the fear is keeping us from dealing with each other, from talking to each other. And we're completely overwhelmed. It's like the straw that broke the camel's back. We can't get out of our own way because we're too afraid that something's going to happen and rock our world when we're so close to homeless and broke and unable to survive now. How do we get to some place where we have a little more security?
Well, and I think it's kind of doing all the things, right? I mean, you have to sing to the choir, but at the same time, you need to get out to the other choirs also. And I don't think we do
Right.
enough of that fast enough. And you spend so much time galvanizing your base that by the time that's all set, the other side has done that too. So someone really has to reach across the proverbial aisle, if you will, and just say, "Hey, you know what? Let you and I sit down and talk. Well, forget about my choir. Let's
Yeah,
just talk."
yeah, shifting the paradigm a little bit. At least they have a base. I'm still trying to identify what a base would look like.
Well, true story.
Yeah, I'm. I'm. I mean, people. Last week I said I'm not a Christian. I'm a devout humanist. Okay, I am a humanist. That's what I believe in. I believe in humanity. I believe that if we get out of our own way and embrace our humanity, we will do better together. And that's where I stand. I mean, there's no gray area about that. That's who I am. And that's what I want to see because I don't see any other way we make it 100 years more unless we come together and fix some problems. And none of the tools, none of the methodologies, none of the media that currently exists are going to do it for us.
That's true.
So I'm reaching out. If any of you guys out there are techies and know a lot about software and everything else, I'm looking for a platform to use that isn't going to break the bank to create a social media platform. So I've been doing research on it for a week now. And when I do research for a week, you're talking about 3 or 4 hours at a time, trying different systems and getting all of the marketing emails, which, oh my God, make my eyes bleed, my hair fall out. See, that's from a week. I had full head of hair last week.
Wow.
But just like, use our program. And I'm looking at this, but you don't really do anything. And I just kind of like, it just makes me crazy. Mm-hmm. Trying to find something useful. And then once I have this useful thing and I've made this beautiful package for people to come to, how do I get people to actually go there when Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all the rest have made it almost impossible for people to spend more than 6 seconds of attention on anything?
Right. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I feel you. Absolutely. And not to say that there aren't people and small agencies that aren't doing that work now. We just got to discover who they are and
bring us together.
Yeah,
work
like
together.
Individuals. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, going back to the poison ball episode. Well, I have my package that I want to do. and you want me to come to your side of the wall, okay, let's go to your side of the wall and see where we're at. There
Mhm.
shouldn't be any reason we can't work with each other and still do the things we do. There isn't any reason we can't do that except our own fear of giving something up.
And we're gonna have to, right?
We're going to have to compromise. And in order to work together, we're going to have to find time to work together.
And hopefully that choice isn't made for us.
It will be if we don't. A
We're,
passive decision is still a decision. The
we're on that
difference
trajectory,
is the difference is you don't have any control over the consequences.
right?
And there are always consequences. Come on, Marwan, say it with me. There are always
Consequences.
consequences.
Well, how was Saturday?
Saturday
Was Saturday coffee day?
coffee day. There was just three of us talking there, and then we went and three of us talked at G2 during the workshop, but nobody else came, and we've already covered the material lots of times. So we went off and we went to the Blackberry Festival for the 30 seconds before I was like, oh my God, I've got to get out of here.
Oh, why? Why? Tell me about that.
Oh my God, it's just the crowds. It just
Oh, okay. Too many people.
the insane crowds in a very small space. I just got in there and I'm just and everybody's selling something. There were no nonprofits that I could see this year.
Really?
Yeah, there were no nonprofit presence there at all. It was just people selling stuff. So yeah,
Do you know the history of that festival?
no, I don't. You want to enlighten me?
No, I don't. So I was asking the
Oh,
question.
ah, I don't. I know that blackberries are a big thing, but blackberries are an invasive species here. They are
Mhm.
not they are not native to Washington State, which I find kind of interesting in the whole of something.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Because yeah,
Yeah,
they're everywhere.
they are, and I mean everybody loves to go pick blackberries, but they are invasive species here. They are not native to Washington State. They just took over,
Mm.
kind of like Scotch broom, um, but better tasting than Scotch broom. I'm sure.
It
Not
was
that I've
great as a
ever
kid
eaten.
walking home from school
Yeah,
or walking to the park, getting your blackberries.
yep. And I'm looking forward to blackberry pie in the very near future. That's on the agenda coming soon.
Oh,
So,
hey.
so going back to it, we need to find a way to reach people. And if any of the podcasts that we do, wherever a podcast to chime in or to message us afterwards, put your message in. Subscribe, first of all, subscribe to us. Second, put your comments in the YouTube comments so we can see them, so that we can find out what your idea for connecting is, because we need to come together and we don't have all the answers. We're not here to tell you what to do. We are here to hear what you have to say and include it in the puzzle so that we can all do better. Remember, this is all about us all doing better together. And if we don't, we're all going to do worse together. I mean, it's really the choice. And a passive choice in this case is really not a good choice. So come join us. Have coffee with us on Saturday
And
at 10 o'clock in the morning.
I really
Or,
want to ask you something, but I don't want to take us down a deep rabbit hole.
well, let's go on.
Is
We've
the-
got 20 minutes, so let's see how big a rabbit hole this is.
All right. So it looks like in California, they're getting ready to pass a bill. If you've been watching, folks have been coming in and looting and, from Walgreens and Walmart and just walking out with groceries and tools, whatever, right? With no real consequence. If they get arrested, they're released immediately and nothing is happening with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now it looks like California is trying to pass a bill where if the workers try to help, then they could get fined, right? Like you need to just remain hands off. To me, it appears if you believe your thought is there's no cabal planning all of this,
Mm-hmm.
but I have this sense and this feeling that this is one how our liberties are eroded and taken away from us, right? That we have to have some level of law and order. So if you're going to allow this. Let me finish my statement. No, I know. If you're going to allow this to happen, right? Businesses are harmed, both small and large, right?
People are
Price,
hurt.
prices are going to be raised, right?
Mhm.
And we'll get to a point where the empathy and the sympathy for those that are making those decisions is going to erode, and folks are going to say, you know what, do whatever you have to do to these people. I'm done with it.
It is already eroding. And you're absolutely right. And those are some of the consequences. But again, this is episode 80. Oh, this is episode 80. And we've been talking about this for the last 20 episodes. We have a broken social contract. We have to come together to fix it. It can't be fixed without us coming together. The cabal is us making passive decisions by not making a decision.
So here's the thing: we have not been making a decision, right?
Right.
We have been making a decision. The decision is to allow it to go, to say things like, and I don't agree with AOC where she's saying, "Oh, these people are just hungry and they want bread." When to me, that is probably a minimal of people, especially when you're looking at the things that are being stolen, and you're also seeing folks that would normally be law-abiding citizens saying, "Hell, you know what? There's no consequence, and I'm struggling too. So if they're going to take it, then I'm going to take it." And now you're starting to see more of this, right? Um, and so, yeah, that is a choice, right? Is to let it go. But it almost seems like in we're just allowing this to happen and going along with it and saying, "Hey, we don't want to do anything to these folks, and they're struggling this and that." But the end result is going to be a dystopic result where we continue to lose, our rights and privileges. Like I don't want to go
Is
into a Walmart and I've got to go and get the little card that says, I want laundry detergent. And you're seeing that now in California.
Yeah. Well, it's
And we know New
I
York
look.
and Cali are the canary in the coal mine, the incubators of what happens usually in the rest of the country.
Well, I mean, this is not a this is not a new situation. The response to it might be a new situation, and it is going to get to a place. I mean, this is how authoritarians get in power.
And that's
Because
scary, right?
right, and the thing is that this is not a new situation, and the answer to the situation is not cracking down on people. To that degree, I agree with the outcome. What the situation is to give more opportunity for people to thrive, and that's really tough in a broken social contract and a corporatocracy.
All right. So logically, if we're looking at it, we're saying, okay, the natural progression is we're probably going to have to go a little authoritarian until we start making these opportunities for people. Is that?
Or okay, so let's talk about the consequences if we send them to jail. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
by and large, prisons do not rehabilitate.
At least not in this country. In other countries, they do.
Only talking about California and New York right now.
Gotcha.
By and large, this is where the problem is. By and
Mhm.
large, prisons do not rehabilitate. Matter of fact, prisons create an environment of slave labor where people build things to be sold to profit the prison system without getting any remuneration themselves. It is
Right.
essentially the new slavery.
Yeah.
Um, so, giving these people consequences by sending them to prison, well, we're not giving them opportunities. We're not rehabilitating them. We are putting them in a system of slave labor so that they can create more materials that the prison, the for-profit prison system can profit off of and not really change anything. You're just making the situation worse. What we have to do, if we're going to punish them, we need to be able to rehabilitate them and provide opportunity for them. You've talked to Corey Wassler, and we've had discussions on here about how the prison system fails everybody. So if you look at this situation in California and New York with a little broader lens, you can see that the decision not to persecute these people, first of all, that sends them into a path that's useless and it doesn't help anything. But it doesn't really solve the problem, because the problem isn't going to be solved by punishment. The problem is going to be solved in a way of people helping each other and not getting to a point where the pressure feels like you need to attack and steal and sell materials.
But it's already out of hand. So you're to me,
Yep.
you're gonna have to get a hold of it first before you
But if you
you
get
can simultaneously make so it needs to be a multi-pronged approach, right? One,
exactly.
we need reform in our prison system. Two, we need to create opportunities. But three, we have to stop the bleeding as to what's happening now,
So
right?
and so I'm going to sidestep for just a second and talk about what we've talked about before. And
Sure.
I'm going to point this out. I think the things that people like Bailey do
Mhm.
and the other nonprofits, what G2 does, that's stemming the blood flow, right?
Mhm.
And then there's the stuff like what Resilient Ecosystems does, which is looking for a way to actually cure the disease so there isn't a blood flow. There's a lot of things working together here. It's the same situation here, but you have to have a plan as you're doing it, and you have to let people know what that plan is and educate them on that plan, which government does a piss poor job of, so that they understand that yes, we're addressing this, but we're not addressing it to just throw people in prison and to look good for our political numbers and for our social media clicks. We're doing this because we have a plan to solve the problem. Do you understand what I'm saying? I know you understand what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
you have to engage people along the way, which brings us right back to the whole conversation we've been having all the way along: is how do you get people engaged when they're so afraid that they can't hear? You want authoritarianism? We're well on the way to having it happen, just by the way that we cannot connect, and we have made people so afraid that they can't get out of their own heads.
And Mark, that's what I see. That is my fear, is that the powers that be are going to allow this to continue to happen without changing what do you say, stopping the blood flow, right?
Yeah.
Above the nonprofits, making fundamental, change here in our nation. And it's going to become more authoritarian and we're going to ask for it, right? It's kind of like 9/11, right? Oh, we locked everything down. Yes, we want to be safe and whatnot. And we're seeing this continued erosion.
It's a real possibility, and it's what you and I work at every day. Not work toward that. We work to prevent that by bringing people together.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah. So this is what we do. This is what we will be talking about Saturday at the board meeting, is how we make the next steps to how we do outreach to people, how you get people engaged in that process of change. So this
I mean,
is
talking about it is big, right? For being a humanist,
mhm.
I think not all humanists talk in this way, right? It's this is the way that it needs to be done without having the dialogue, right? I like our conversation because whether or not I'm more on your side with things, I can look at the other side and say, hey, well, let's have this dialogue for others to see, because
Mhm.
this is how other people are thinking. What do we do? And what is the consequence, right? Okay, so let's say we say, hey, the humanist thing to do, I retract that. It may not be the humanist thing to do, is just keep letting it happen, right?
Mhm.
Keep letting folks run into these stores and take whatever they want. Uh, what is the long-term consequence of allowing that to happen and allow it to go unchecked? If you think that's the more humanist thing to do.
I don't think it's a humanist thing to do. I think it's the political thing to do. I think that the humanist thing to do would be to put resources in place to help these folks and have people in the stores. And this is something that we've talked about in the Kitsap Resiliency Project. When Cascadia happens, that is going to be a very real thing happening right here, right now in Kitsap County. Sorry, Music Man reference.
Mhm.
Um, and we're going to have people looting stores because they're terrified and they are afraid and they just lost everything in a large quake and tsunami.
All right, well then let me ask it this way.
So, but let me one more thing. Hold that
Go
question for
ahead.
just a second. So, what we have recommended is, instead of law enforcement looking at, who aren't going to be able to get where they need to be anyhow because of the roads, they go to the stores and they're pre-trained with the people that work at the stores and people in the community around the store to
Mhm.
help mitigate and de-escalate those situations so that people understand they will be taken care of and helped, and they're being told that by one of their neighbors, by people that they recognize. That same model can be used in this case to help de-escalate the situations and mitigate the looting, but also you have to give them resources. You have to give them an ability to get help because they're doing this. People don't just go loot things because they want a TV. They're doing it because they can sell it for money for drugs, which is a big problem because of the world we live in. For food, which the prices keep going up and shortages are happening right now. So there's
That might be a percentage mark, but I think there's a whole lot of folks that are doing it because it's easy and there's no consequence, right? If you remember there was a big push where it was like, hey, fast food restaurants are paying $18 an hour and people don't want to work fast food, right? There's plenty of job openings right now, and folks don't want to do that work. It's not a
yeah,
livable wage.
but
So instead, so
let's
instead, I'm going to take a TV and I'm going to go
and pawn it for $50.
and I'm gonna take from society, but they're still not covering what they would earn by just going to work.
Yeah, exactly so. They aren't. I mean, and there's a level of education that has to happen. None of this is an easy solution, but one of the solutions is to mitigate it at the source. But you have to have people that can de-escalate and can move them away from that piece, and that's not your average Walmart worker.
So how I wanted to rephrase the question
Yeah.
is based on those that are saying, hey, we just need to let this be because folks are hungry, folks are needing it for drugs, they can't survive, whatever those reasons are. What do they believe the consequence is going to result of allowing that to happen? Like what are they hoping for?
They aren't hoping for anything. They're just reacting. That's the problem. We react without thinking. Welcome to being educated in this country.
And I think that's part of the dialogue that needs to happen, right? It's like, okay, if you think we shouldn't lock folks up and we shouldn't do, these
Then what?
tackle them at the door. Yeah, then what? Are they gonna steal enough to where is that their new normal? Where that's how they pay their rent and pay their bills? Like every 2 days they're gonna
Well,
run into a
let's talk
Walmart and steal.
let's talk about market pressure and capitalism. They steal enough from that Walmart, they're going to close that Walmart on and move it someplace where they're not going to steal from them, and there won't be a Walmart resource there. That's a consequence.
And this is happening in I can't remember if it was Chicago or Maryland. It's somewhere, and it would create a food desert. Like this would be the only grocery store, and they're
Yep.
talking about closing it down because of all the theft.
And they will close it down and move it, and everybody in that neighborhood and everybody in that community will suffer for it. That's a consequence right there.
Yeah.
So bringing the people in that community together, I'll guarantee you those people that are ripping off the place will hear about it from their neighbors. But you have to have somebody bring those people together and to say, this is what we're going to lose if we don't stop this from happening. Because people in that community know who the people doing it are.
Yeah.
They do. And
Well,
if they come
unfortunately,
together and say,
family members-
stop this shit, it will stop.
A lot of times it's family members, which is unfortunate, right?
Yep. And then, but if the family comes together and says, you will stop this now,
Or
you'll hear, or
what's the
we'll
consequence?
we'll turn your ass in.
Yeah,
you
but
know.
there's okay, you turn me in. I'll be out in an hour.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
We'll do this, or we will let the neighborhood know, and they'll beat the living shit out of you when they realize that you're the fucker that's causing the problem. Oops, sorry, you're gonna have to beep that one out.
But these are the conversations that we have to get past, talking about these huge platitudes and esoteric. Oh, we just need to do this, and this will fix things. This is the humanist way.
Did I ever give anybody the idea I thought this was easy?
No. I'm not talking about you. I'm just
Okay.
speaking because it's how when I listen to prognosticators,
Talking
uh,
heads.
I'm a talking head as well, speak, there's not solution or, as you said, consequence. So what are we going to do? This is the problem. How do we fix it? What are we going to try? And if that doesn't work, then we try something else. To me, the porta potties downtown is a great example, right?
Hmm.
We advocated for city council to give us 10 grand. We were able to do that last year. The 10 grand sat. Now we're like, hey, these folks need porta potties, and at the same time, citizens and folks that are housed and businesses don't want to see genitalia and watching people relieve themselves. So it's a win-win for both sides. We What do we need to do to fix the issues, right? And a bigger issue is you need to solve homelessness. But in the
Hmm.
interim, people need dignity and a place to use the bathroom, and we also need to not
which
expose our
which
youth.
becomes a step in solving homelessness.
Right. It does. But there's been this inaction, right? So it's like,
Hmm.
hey, we don't want to do anything or move these people over here, but where's the here? Where's the new there, right?
Hmm.
And then how is that going to fix the situation?
Well, this is what you get if you're looking for a political answer. It's what you always get when you're looking for a political answer.
And it's not working.
No, it's not, because they won't do anything because they're afraid of what people might feel about them.
We have to try something. And if it doesn't work, then we try something else. And
We build community. It is the only way that's going to make it work.
talk about it, let people come to the table. It is a democracy. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get your way, but you know what? You might, because we may try it in the way that you didn't want and it doesn't work. And we have to come and say, you know what? That didn't actually work. So we're going to have to try something else. Let's go ahead and try this. I think if we do that, that's a really big way of going forward as a community.
It is, and the thing is that, okay, G2 hosted a meeting a while back about transportation, and I actually got a chance to talk to Kristen Jewell about the situation where they put porta potties in and one of them was lit on fire and burned down. It turned out that instance was somebody outside of the homeless community there that wanted to have a say about it. And I'm not going to use the F word again, but that was my feeling on the subject. So they burned that down. And when they reestablished that, which is the part that the story that nobody tells because it's not as interesting as the homeless
Mhm.
people burn their own thing down, you know.
Mhm.
But the rest of as Paul Harvey says, and now the rest of the story. The rest of the story is they brought the porta potty back in, they took away the burned one, and they worked with the people in the homeless community there who then policed it and started cleaning up needles, cleaning up the mess, keeping the place clean, and keeping an eye out for people who wanted to do something like burn it down. And it worked. It worked. What a surprise. Treating people like human beings and helping them have dignity works to help them keep the area clean and debunk all of the rumors about these things.
And
But the rumors are sexier. They make people angry and agitated, and there we are. And actually, it's 2 o'clock, so I have to be the timekeeper here.
well,
Um,
the other thing that I just want to say on that, to put a
Generating outrage. That's the way I wanted to say it.
generating outrage, is, let's say they did burn down that porta potty.
Mhm.
You have folks that are housed that commit crime all the time, that burn things down for insurance money and things of that nature. That's not a reason not to provide the bathrooms. You know what I mean?
No, it's not.
And so my big thing is, if we're gonna have a last word, is find ways to say yes. It's so easy to say no. It's so much harder to say yes
And
or okay.
find ways to connect. Okay, which is going back to the point of the broadcast, is that COVID is a thing that's going to, either it's going to identify who we are and by how we react to it. If we want a better world, we want the mistakes that created the situation that created COVID to not be repeated. we have to come together and demand that they don't.
Yeah.
And there's no one right way to do this. It is a puzzle, and we need all of your pieces in the puzzle so that we can have true representation and we can make it work for the most people. What authoritarianism is, you have one person that makes a decision for you and you like it or you don't. That's not a way to live.
I got 30 more seconds just to show you one thing.
Okay.
Just want to show people that I'm a person that puts his money where his mouth is and his time where his mouth is. This is the porta potties being serviced yesterday. And this is what it costs to service 2 porta potties, right? Now, the extra charge was because their route is Friday, but it was a holiday, and they got filled up in 4 days. 2 porta potties. We were trying to get one down there. There's 2 down there, filled in 4 days. So they need to be dumped twice a week, right? But that's how much. Where was all the feces and waste going before?
It was the side of the buildings. I remember the complaints of people talking about feces on the side of their building and around, and the smell and the sanitary. But now it's one step closer to having a solution. So it isn't the solution. It's a step toward it, though.
This is what it costs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not free, but man, does it do a lot of good.
Yep.
In the grand scheme of things, that it's pennies on the dollar.
It is, absolutely.
That's the word.
So let's talk about the way to solve problems is to find the most human way to do it.
I feel like that's the most human way to do it.
Yep.
And sometimes, we've got a chat here.
Oh, Terry.
Hey.
Clapping.
We have folks that
Terry is giving us the clap.
Sometimes bureaucracy moves slow. Sometimes it can only do what it can do. And this is the power of citizens coming together and saying, okay, we're not going to wait anymore. The Rock the Block folks made this happen. And growing every day. So just wanted to share that.
Yep. Absolutely.
If you can, last word is I'm gonna give you the last word. City Council was tonight. That's the last public comment on this particular issue. So getting involved, understanding what's happening is important. And I don't think that's political. It is our city, and you have to know, right? We could be armchair quarterbacks, but if you don't know what's being said or what the issue is and what's being talked about to solve it, you might have the solution, and we actually need to hear from you.
Absolutely.
You're the piece that we've been missing to really solve it.
Absolutely. So I just want to finish up with, it's a shitty job, and I'm glad you're tackling it.
I knew I wasn't getting out of this clean.
With that, that's my final comment.
That's the final word. So for Mark Boatwright Frost, I'm Arwan Cameron. This is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. We'll see you next time, everyone.